Welcome to another installment of the Persistent Rumor. Hey, look at this. Look at that. Oh, little merch. Oh,
That's
nice.
sexy shit on a t-shirt, on a sweatshirt. Was that a t-shirt or a sweatshirt?
This is a long sleeve t-shirt because I'm fancy. So, yeah. My name is Chocolate Yoda.
With my face on it.
My name is Chocolate Yoda, spelled Y-O-D-D-A-H, because film studios are litigious. And with me, as always, to my right, is my heterosexual life mate, one of the loves of my life, my partner in crime, Chancleta.
That's right. I'm the guy without my own face on my body right now. On black and white print, you can rarely tell the melanin difference between us. It's nice.
Yeah, you can do that in color, too. Stop saying stupid things.
No, I can't. No, I think you misunderstood me. I don't even know why we're laughing. I think we're laughing for two different reasons.
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Mind your own fucking business.
No, it's great. So I said that in black and white print, we can barely tell the difference between the melanin.
Oh, barely? I thought you said really.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's definitely different. So my response to your earlier comment then makes no sense at all.
Yes, indeed. But that's okay.
And now you've upset me and the show's ruined.
Onward. We must go forth.
we must go forth and propagate. What's on your mind, chum? Anything, man? Is as always, like, it's just not slowed down. Before you answer that question, here's what I find interesting about 2021 is, as you know, I don't care about New Year. I don't celebrate it because I still don't know what I'm supposed to be celebrating. But what I found interesting about it was how people were like, oh yeah, 2021, it's all going to be different. Fun in 2021. Okay, well, you know, it started off with violent insurrection at the Capitol building and has led to more people dying. By the end of this month, there will probably be 500,000 people dead of coronavirus. And now that twit dump got off twice. I mean, he's going to suffer the consequences of his actions through the legal system. But, I mean, 2021 has started off with just repeated Rochambeaus to the nuts.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, you know. Yeah, I was thinking the other night, as I do occasionally, you know, I think. So
sometimes you sit and think, sometimes you just sit.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. I do have that rare ability to just shut down my brain completely, and it's like a fucking wasteland in there. But so this is one of those nights where I was in thought, and I thought to myself, when did it start going all wrong? And I think that what happened is that during 9/11, there were people shocked to their core, right? There were a lot of people that were just scared to death. And I think that a lot of people haven't recuperated from that. They haven't coped with that. They haven't, because that's when I remember
how does that affect
the craziness.
If that's true, how does that affect things?
Well, so you have a lot of fear mongering going on, and that seems to be the driving force behind a lot of the craziness that's going on with between all these different parties, like all these people worried about civil war and people worried about just violence and all kinds of craziness, and just a pretty broad feeling of distrust in people, right? Like that's just what it feels like on online and in life. Like you see a lot of that. Just, it's just almost everybody just kind of like, oh, I don't like you. I mean, we're at the point right now where we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are like, fuck you. Like, I'm not wearing a mask, infringing on my rights. Like, really? I have to convince you of the fact that it's like, that would be like, we're in the middle of a fucking hurricane and you decide that, it's not happening. This doesn't affect me.
Okay, so, I'm with you so far. So how does that tie to 9/11?
So I think 9/11 was the first time where we really was just like, wow, this was like felt nationwide, right?
Okay, so obviously you're referring to your lifetime.
Yes, in recent times. I mean, yeah, we saw the bombing we saw the bombing in Oklahoma, and it was just like, I think, just like school shootings, people just saw it as a one-off kind of thing. Well, it was just one crazy guy, right? As opposed to, foreigners coming from another country that are Muslim or, just any brown people, really. It could have been anybody who's brown. They would have flown the plane, and that's who we would have been afraid of, right? And I think that since then, we've had, in people's quench to get revenge, oh, go get them, and all of this stuff, it just really transpired into some hateful shit where the xenophobia just like expanded and grew larger, and to the point where people are just making shit up about a bunch of different brown people. Look, and again, that's speculation. This isn't something, I haven't polled 100,000 people or anything like that, but I would love to know, like, I mean, I think I have good reason to stand on where this is when people start getting really traumatized about just, terrorists in general in this country.
Right. So here's what I think. Here's what I think you're experiencing. You are experiencing overconsumption of social media and also news, right? When the numbers get broken down in terms of what's actually happening worldwide, or if you just want to relegate it to America, okay. But if you think about the fact that there's roughly 330 million people in America, and then you look at the crime stats, and it shows maybe there was a blip during the pandemic, but overall, crime has been way, way down. People are living longer because of science. People are living better because of science. So by a lot of different metrics, it's actually the best time to be alive. Now, if you look at the entirety of American history, America's been through far worse than what's going on now. You alluded to the Civil War. I still am not convinced, even a little bit, that a new civil war is on the way.
I'm not convinced of it. I'm just saying that that's what people are worried about. People are afraid of.
Well, who are these people? You're saying, okay, so let's drill down. So you're saying that, sort of tongue in cheek, that you didn't query 100,000 people. How many people did you query, if you did at all? Or is this just what you're picking up on online?
I'm picking it up online. I'm picking it up on news interviews.
Exactly.
These are topics that have come up.
And those are exactly the two things that I started with, right? Here's what we know from studies about people who consume news. We know two definite things that happens when people consume a lot of news. Number one, they're not more informed than people who consume less news, which I think is interesting, right? You would think that, if I'm reading newspapers all day or going online to all the different media sites, and usually, when you hear what people list out as their media sites, or their news sites rather, it might as well be just one, because all the sites that they tend to list are exactly alike. There's on one side you got people that go to CNN, MSNBC, Huffington Post, those types of places, right? On the other side, you've got people that are looking at Breitbart, Tucker Carlson. It's all just one news source, right? Because they're all saying, Newsmax, OAN, they're all saying the same thing, right? Very few people have a variety of sources that are distinguishable from one another. Like the people that are looking at CNN are not seeing what Breitbart is saying. They're not reading what OAN and Newsmax are saying. With good reason, when you have to put a disclaimer up before your show that you're full of shit, I get why people don't choose to read that stuff, but they don't even dip their toe in just to see like, oh, what are they talking about over there? Right? They tend to eschew all of that stuff. So that's the echo chamber. But here's the other thing that we know about people who consume news. And this is just based on psych studies, right? So what we know is that people tend to think that where they live is more dangerous than is actually demonstrated in statistics, right? If you recall, I think this was the second time that Barack Obama ran for president. Might have been the first, but I don't recall specifically. But I do remember very clearly that right-wing talking heads were all talking about how terrible crime was. Even when people would say to them in response, but crime is at the lowest it's been in like 50 years. Oh no, but it's terrible. Like they were just manufacturing fear. And in news, the old saying is, if it bleeds, it leads. So that alludes to the idea that it's all about bad news. Whatever sensational, whatever makes people have a strong reaction and usually a strong negative reaction, that's what the media is going to continue to feed them, right? And it works the same on both sides.
Yeah, that's what news media and social media are really about, is keeping you engaged.
Right. And so, I'm not vilifying what social media is doing because it's all about eyeballs. And, if you're given something for free, then you are the product. On Facebook, you've been giving this worldwide free platform because you are the product. Your eyeballs are the product, right? And that's what they're selling to as many companies as they can sell it to, which is why they're a multi-billion-dollar company and why there's like 3 billion people on the platform. It's like half the earth is on Facebook, right? So,
and in exchange, they'll give you a unlimited photo repository.
Yeah, they'll give you ways to cheat on your wife. They'll give you all sorts of stuff. Okay, I believe that Facebook is listed in like something like 2 or 3 out of every 5 divorces now, because dudes are trying to hook up with their high school sweetheart and shit like that, whatever. But so I don't begrudge Facebook for any of this, right? I have no problem with what Facebook's doing. I think that they are inconsistent in some of the ways that they apply their form of I don't want to call it censorship, but their form of control over content. It just seems very inconsistent. But again, I don't begrudge that. Journalism, on the other hand, needs to be held accountable for the shit that they're doing. They are feeding people information that they know is wrong. They are doing their best to just scare the hell out of people. Because again, like you said, that's what engages people. It's like, oh my God, what's happening next? What's happening now? What just happened? What's going to happen? Everyone that consumes that is moved in ways that they don't understand, right? And this is not new. None of this is new at all. All right. Again, look at world history. The way that America got led into the revolution was through Common Sense, that was written by Thomas Paine, right? I like to call him the original T. Paine, right? And he sold 500,000 copies of that at a time where there were probably like less than 4 million people, aside from the natives that were here first, but, the settlers, so to speak. There was around 4 million of those, and even if you're going to be generous, 10 million, 500,000 out of 10 million is a spectacular market penetration, right? And,
absolutely,
of course,
especially when many of those didn't know how to read.
Yeah, and he wasn't necessarily fear-mongering, but he was making a case for the war, for going against King George and, starting a ruckus, right? So this is the same as it's ever been. Like, it's just always been this way. And what we've seen as a difference is that people can't agree on what facts are. That's the only difference I've noticed, and I made this comparison before in the Civil War, right? All those debates leading up to the Civil War, where when America was forming before July 4th, 1776, where all these conversations were taking place, by 1787, when they were having one of the constitutional conventions, and they were coming up with the compromise of referring to slaves as 3/5 of humans, where they came up with the Electoral College. Those conversations were based on the understanding that everybody agreed that slavery was a thing. There was no conversation at that time where people were going, "What do you mean slavery? Slavery doesn't exist." Now, I posted something on Facebook, I think it was yesterday, where I said, now white people finally feel the frustration of when video evidence is useless, And I was saying it sarcastically, but but it's true. Like they thought, oh, look at all this video evidence that we have for the insurrection at the Capitol building, and only 7 out of 50 Republicans were looked at that and went, "Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about." The other 43 were like, "No, what insurrection? I didn't see an insurrection, and I certainly didn't see that psychopath starting it." As far as evidence for any crime that I can think of, there are 2 crimes in my lifetime that had what I would refer to as an orgy of evidence. Okay, one was O.J. Simpson. The only thing that they didn't have in the O.J. case was video, and the other one was the insurrection in 2021. There could not have been more evidence pointing to the fact that this sociopath piece of garbage led an insurrection against the capital of America. So we're through the looking glass. We're at a point where half the country doesn't want to accept the reality that the other half of the country has accepted. That I can see as a real thing, but in terms of what you're referring to, I think that's all manufactured through social media and journalism.
I mean, it's a solid point. I mean, you also have to acknowledge that McConnell voted against, or in favor of Trump. McConnell voted in favor of Trump, and not 10 minutes later goes on to speak about how Trump was guilty, how he did plan the insurrection, basically
It's 1984. It's the book 1984. Doublespeak.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was like, am I missing something? Is he?
No, that's literally doublespeak. That's doublethink and doublespeak. That is the idea put forth in the book 1984, where you can have 2 opposing ideas be equally true. which is impossible. Okay,
Yeah.
two opposing ideas cannot be equally true. One of them is true, one of them is not. One of them is right, one of them is wrong. That's just reality. So what McConnell has done for decades is speak out of both sides of his mouth. He's a piece of garbage.
It was just about like, I mean, usually like a day or two goes by so that people, maybe forget how to make the connection or whatever. We're talking 10 minutes afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like, man, you just giving up, like even trying to hide it at this point. Like, it's crazy to me. I don't get it, man. But, like for me, it's like, look, I really wasn't expecting Trump to get convicted. I just thought that maybe this would have struck home a little harder for some people, and they would have reconsidered a little stronger, but not nearly enough.
Look, when you look at national polls, they're shockingly consistent in terms of what people want, right? Most people agree that it's necessary to control gun sales. And the types of guns that are available to the average person. Most people agree on this. Most people agree on living wages. Most people agree on healthcare issues and the framework for healthcare. Most people agree on education. Okay? What we're seeing, what America is experiencing now, is a severe disconnect between the will of the people and the people that ostensibly represent them. It is not a representative government right now because the people have clearly spoken and said this is what we want. And these guys are like, but I can't make money with what you want. Right?
Right.
That's really the reality. That's really that's what it comes down to. When you have as much money flowing into politics as there is currently, it changes politics. Because when they did that corporate personhood decision, which had been shot down for 150 years straight, it was not a hard idea to wrap your head around. Oh, yeah, businesses are not people. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Right. 150 fucking years. People agreed that businesses are not people. The Supreme Court agreed. Other lawmakers agreed. Everyone seemed to be okay with that idea. And then suddenly, it changed. And so what happened? Well, now the floodgates for money were just wide open. Right? So now you have money flooding the political process in an unprecedented way, at an unprecedented level. And guess what? America is now in the image of what business owners want. And what business owners want is to remove any impedance to profit. That's it. And so they buy politicians. And then when it comes time to vote about the regulation to curb certain types of pollution, well, the politician goes, well, I know thousands of people probably die from pollution, but this guy gets me drugs and hookers. Right? Yeah. So when when my constituents call, I don't give a fuck. That's Joe Blow that sent me $5. This motherfucker sent $20,000 to my campaign, or $100,000, or $1 million. That's how it is. Right. And there's tiers, representatives get X amount, then Congress people get more, then senators get more, and then, you got a loser asshole sociopath that somehow got elected, even though he didn't get elected. His opponent got 2.9 million more votes, but whatever. He somehow wound up in the White House, and all he cared about was how to do the biggest cash grab possible, and he succeeded. And of course, it wasn't him. Right. He's too fucking stupid to have orchestrated any of that. He was just in a corner going, oh, that sounds good. Right? Yeah. So, and, the real insurrection would have been more appropriate when that huge multi-trillion-dollar giveaway happened, so that wealthy people were taken care of and average citizens were left to go fuck off. That would have been a great time to storm the castle and go, yo, what the fuck, man? We are dying out here.
Right.
We're losing our homes. We're losing our jobs. What the fuck? But no. And that's why when people bring up the idea of civil war, I think it's a joke. These people didn't bat an eye when they were fucked in the ass. Okay? Yeah. So, and the Civil War, we have to appreciate the conditions that created it. You had half the country see their livelihoods threatened. And of course that's going to motivate people to do extreme things. That's not happening now. Nothing even remotely like that is happening now. And again, America has a very well-established history of not giving a fuck. Okay, you referenced Timothy McVeigh when he bombed the federal building in Oklahoma City. Okay, this motherfucker purposely and knowingly parked the van full of explosives under the daycare center. But you're worried about brown people, right? So you looked at that and you were like, nah, oh no, it's Muslims and terrorists and Mexicans that we got to worry about, right? And in 2012, you saw 20 children ages 6 and 7 murdered because of a lack of gun control. And half the population went, Second Amendment. Come on, man. No one's going to fucking Civil War now. It's just not happening. I mean, look, I hope I'm right. I mean, I'm taking history and trying to digest it and trying to reach conclusions about it. I mean, of course I could be wrong, but it just seemed like, who's going to be running out of their house with pitchforks and, fucking AKs, and who are they going to be fighting? Like, how do you even figure out who the other side is?
No, exactly. And that will be a weird thing. That would be something that it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see how it plays out if it does happen. But I think part of the reason that I worry is because people are delusional. Like you said that, there were people in the Civil War that, they were losing their livelihood. They didn't know, that's a big thing to worry about. But I think what happens is that people now actually think that's happening when it's not. People are.
I mean, look, coronavirus has affected people economically, of course.
Yeah.
But their livelihood during the time of slavery, in the run up to the Civil War, that was not just their livelihood, that was their way of life. Yeah. Right. And now people are sort of saying, oh, it seems like the government's working on solutions for me. I mean, I personally feel that way. That especially now with Biden in, I mean, exclusively with Biden. When Dump was in, this was not happening. But with Biden in, what I see is a person who understands the situation. And I just want to remind anyone that's hearing me talk glowingly about Biden, I never liked the guy. Okay, his history is something that I find objectionable, not in its entirety, but there were decisions that he made that I really, really don't like. Okay, so what I'm saying is what I'm seeing him do now as president of America. He has gotten to work. He's mobilized the government on behalf of the average citizen. All right. I'm not saying businesses will suddenly face the wrath of democracy and liberalism and all that shit. That's not going to happen. Businesses are still running America. But just like Bill Clinton, just like Barack Obama, there seems to be this understanding that, okay, you know what? Business people are running America. We have to give them their pound of flesh, but that doesn't mean that average citizens have to starve. We can help them too. Right?
Right.
So that's what I think is happening. And that's why, again, when there was that multi-trillion-dollar giveaway in 2020 to wealthy people, if there was going to be a civil war or storming of the castle, why wasn't it then?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Joel Osteen got like $4 million.
Oh, fuck that psycho.
Joel fucking Osteen. I'm like, for what? And I
don't like that dude because of his anti-gay marriage stance.
I don't like that dude for so many reasons. But,
I mean, in general, I don't like any of those mega church people. I mean, maybe Billy Graham was the only authentic one out of the bunch, but they're all, it's all prosperity preaching and all this bullshit, And I'm not even offended in terms of their complete adulteration of the Bible, because the Bible in itself is already adulterated. But just the fact that they're fleecing people,
right.
these people that are hardworking, they cannot afford really to give away this money to these charlatans, and they do, and again, coming around full circle, it's all fear mongering.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, and it's to me, it's always funny how these people come to prominence, because it's like I feel like everybody just opened the same email one day. And clicked on the link, and it's just like, holy shit, man! This is just like, and there's a lot of that shit going on. And then,
but it's constantly old as the hills, though. It's been going on since the dawn of time, dude. Here, So you started off with a proposition of where it went wrong. Here's where I think it went wrong, I think it went wrong in prehistory. Okay, I imagine that there was a time where the biggest, strongest guy in the village said to himself, I'm cutting down more trees than other motherfuckers. I'm killing more buffalo than other motherfuckers, or whatever the fuck they were killing back then. I'm like, I think I should get more. I think I should get a bigger cut.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
And I think that's where the perspective of lack was created. The perspective of I don't have enough. I want to get more, and I don't care who suffers for that.
Right.
And you hear it. You hear people exemplify what I'm saying when the subject of minimum wage comes up, right? Oh my God, then that person is going to be making more money? What does that mean for me? Well, probably nothing.
Yeah.
But why is that your concern? Does that dude owe you money? Is that dude taking money from you? No. They're just getting, and this whole thing with $15 an hour, it's ridiculous. It's like that figure's been trapped in amber for 10 or 15 years. It's useless. $15 an hour is not enough money anywhere in America to pay for someone's life. No.
At this point,
that's an economic fact.
At this point, we should be looking at 20 or above, because
way more.
We've been talking about
at this point. Honestly, you're looking at $32 to $34 an hour. If you're really going to talk about giving people inflation, a living wage, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I trust the economists that have crunched the numbers. If you look at, averages in terms of housing, averages in terms of food, insurance, education, all that shit that people have to pay for, and not even with like frills and shit, but just what the average person, the average American is a battery in the matrix. We're a profit center for large corporations. And, I've come to terms with that. I like the shit that I like. I like to sleep indoors. I like to eat the food that I eat. I like to drive around in my car. I like the phone that I have, all that shit. I'm an indoor cat, and I'm willing to pay for that, right? So I'm okay. I'm okay with being a profit center for a bunch of different corporations, right? But I just feel like the question of compassion comes into play. Like it bothers me knowing that there's so many people less fortunate than I am. And not just in America, worldwide. I mean, if people think poor in America is bad, try poor in Africa. Try poor in the Middle East. You know, that's real fucking poverty. You know, so, you know, it's, and the ultimate frustration is twofold. Number one, knowing that these problems are strictly financial and can be solved today. Mm-hmm. Number two, knowing that the will to solve these problems is not there because of lack of compassion.
Yeah, and it's a sad story. I mean, here, the thing that bothers me often is the very fact that people don't wear masks for COVID. And it doesn't bother me because, like, listen, if, you know, I understand how you feel, like, you know, if you're home or whatever, you don't want to wear your mask to be, you know, to go out and, you know, I don't know, fucking take a drive to the store or something. I understand that you don't want to, you know, but I don't do it because, like, I'm worried about myself or, you know, whatever the fuck it is. I do it because it's like, I don't want to get anybody else sick, right?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why do you wear a seatbelt when you get in your car?
At this point, I think it's just habit, but I wear a seatbelt to protect myself.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Now, if there were no law saying that you had to wear your seatbelt, would you still wear it?
Yes.
Why?
Because I respect physics.
There you go. That's my line, but I'll let you steal it. Right?
Yeah.
But listen, it's that simple. It's what you're describing is a sense of self-fucking preservation.
Yeah.
That's why I started wearing my seatbelt 7 years before it was a law in New York to do so.
The argument that people make, and this is what the issue is, the argument that people make often is like, well, only 1% or 2% of people are affected, so, you know, I'll just take a chance. And it's like, that's not the point. And it's not
even an argument. It's just noises coming out of their mouths. Just uneducated, ignorant, dumb, stupid, mouth-breathing, sister-fucking assholes.
I totally
making
get it.
A caseless case.
Well, I mean, yeah, making a caseless case, absolutely no evidence, not really taking into account perspective,
anything
or anything for that matter. But I mean,
hey, America's leading doctor is on television telling you what the situation is and what to do about it, but somehow you think that his goal is to lie to you.
Listen, people believe that they're that NASA is conspiring against us and not telling us the truth, that there's a flat Earth. Right? People believe that the moon landing didn't happen. Mm-hmm. People believe so many things that just really don't add up. You know, they would say things and not have like their math would be wrong in certain cases when they're trying to prove something. Like I remember a guy trying to prove that the Earth is flat, and so he was like, "I'm going to show you an experiment." And what he does is he gets on a plane and he takes the tray out of his seat and he lays a fucking a level on there. And this shit goes, and he sets a timer and he goes off for like, this shit goes off for like 20, 30 minutes or whatever. He's like, see, so if there was curvature in the Earth, you know, the plane would have to adjust for that curvature and it would have to dip every few miles, but it's not doing that. It's been perfectly level the whole time. Yeah. And it's like, you're completely underestimating the size of the Earth.
No, that's assuming that ever even came into his mind. That's a person that, if there was true justice in the world, we would be allowed to drown him in a bucket.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know it sounds funny, but I have to say that I mean it. Like, I'm not saying that it should be done. What I'm saying is that it would be right if it were done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, it's also a preservation of the species. I mean, how the fuck do we move forward with that guy laying around? You know
Like,
what I mean? And,
there are too many weak links. Again, in the animal kingdom, the dead wood is burned off.
you know,
The members of a species that threaten the future of the species are cast aside and either killed or left to fend for themselves, because the instincts that animals have tell them this individual that is weak or stupid is a threat, and we don't want anyone breeding with that individual, so that individual has to be removed some way, somehow. That's how animals handle that kind of thing.
yeah,
Humans have attachments to the little things that they create, so they're like, oh, I know he's stupid, but I'm keeping him.
yeah, yeah, he's fine.
You know,
He's gonna have a shitty life, but Tim's staying. Yeah,
and that part of it I can understand. The part that I have trouble with is that person's allowed to vote.
yeah.
That person's allowed to drive. That person is allowed to breed.
That
That's
person is
the
allowed
problem.
to buy a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so and it just never really ends, because now what happens is that you let's add the internet so they can go and research shit. When you don't have the fundamentals of science, right? Like,
I
you don't
love
have the
that.
fundamentals.
I love the word research to describe reading one article on a website.
Oh my god! If that please.
Yeah, usually it's just a headline, right?
Usually it's a malformed Google query. And it's like, and then it's like, oh, look at these 3 headlines over here, and I'm out. See, look at that.
Right.
I got everything I need to know.
Yeah.
And right. And so there's no citation. There's none of that going on. There, you know what I mean? And it's like, look, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do research when I'm just looking something up. But here's the thing. It's like, there are credible sources out there. There are ways to look things up. There are ways to look for biases. There are ways to really, really check, what you're reading, because, like, there's all sorts of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of ways to get tricked into, taking a side. So the best way, and you said something about, a lot of people aren't like looking at Newsmax or AON or whatever, and it's like, I do, because I'm curious to know what it is that they're saying.
God, that's got to be horrible.
It's I don't subject myself to it that often, because I mean, some of the stuff is really out there. I mean, like, Fox is cranking it up now. Fox is taking it up a notch. Like, man, we're losing viewers to Newsmax and OAN. We gotta kick up the crazy, man, and bring them back. And so, and that's just what it seems like it's playing out.
Yeah, and what you're describing is confirmation bias, right? So
yeah,
this is the thing where it's very, very human. This is a very typically human thing. It's like you lay out 5 bits of information. One of them is true, but unfortunately the one that's true contradicts what you think. So the 4 that confirm what you think is the 4 that you'll pay attention to. But what's worse, and this is really the problem with confirmation bias, is when the 4 contradict you and you ignore them for the 1 that confirms what you think.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's what people do. That's what people look.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Forer effect?
No, I don't think I have.
This is the greatest thing. Okay. Let me remind you that a year or 2 ago, I sent you a link to take a personality test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When I gave you the results of that personality test, it is the same results that I give everybody. right? So this is what this guy Forer learned in 1948. He said if he presented a piece of paper to his students and said that the answers were customized, they were like a personality assessment that was customized to them, 80% of them felt that it accurately described them.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they do that is the same way that tarot card readers and palm readers and all those people do what they do. They'll say, you're a very cautious person, but sometimes you take chances, don't you? You're kind of, outspoken, but sometimes you're shy in certain situations, right? So what they do is they present pairs of descriptions, and one is opposite to the other, right? And what do people do? They ignore the thing that's wrong and just focus on the thing that's right and get to the end of it and go, oh, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's confirmation bias.